Nobody ever called him the Son of Man except Jesus himself. And he never leaves heaven. This is the interesting thing about Daniel.
Heaven is taking citizens right now. Apply for that citizenship. Then why isn't the book of Enoch part of the Bible?
All the wicked and all the righteous are in heaven.
Higher than the angels? Mm-hmm. Is that possible? The Son of Man in the Gospel of John. Why was Jesus called the Son of Man?
That's an interesting question, and it's a profound question. Nobody ever called him the Son of Man except Jesus himself. And the only way he referred to himself ever was as the Son of Man.
John understood that he was the divine presence. You know, there was, in the beginning there was the Word was God, it was the Word that created all things, and Jesus was the Word, and yet Jesus said, Son of Man. What is the change? What is the difference?
In Israelite history, the concept of Son of Man had a long tradition. For example, in Ezekiel, God calls Ezekiel 93 times and calls him Son of Man. But in Ezekiel, that merely means mere mortal. Listen up, mere mortal. I got something to tell you. I got a commission for you to undertake.
Hey, human, listen to me, like that. God is saying that.
That's
yes.
Right. 93 times. And Son of Man there only means mere human being. However, in Daniel 7, Daniel has a vision, a dream in the night. And in this vision, he says, I saw one like the Son of Man who was coming to Almighty God on a cloud. And he's introduced to God, and God gives him a position in heaven next to God, and he gives him a commission. And the commission is, I want you to develop a field force on earth, like a commander of troops, and they will dismantle all of the wicked empires and establish in their place the reign of God, the kingdom.
So this image that Daniel sees is this like a human image. This angel is coming, this angel of light is coming, and yet he is embodying a human form.
He was a human. That's the important thing. He was a human.
Given a task.
He was a human who had come to God in heaven. And God gives him a role there in heaven, and he never leaves heaven. This is the interesting thing about Daniel. So in Ezekiel, the Son of Man is a man who is given the job of rebuilding the temple and purifying the land after the destruction wreaked upon it by the Babylonians. In Daniel, God is going to act. God is going to be the judge of all wicked and wickedness, and he is telling Daniel, you got to get this job done through your troops on earth. And the troops on earth have a special name, the people of the holy ones of the Most High. That's you and me.
That's amazing, to be workers of such dynamic kingdom, a heavenly kingdom, to think of ourselves. And God is recruiting you and every one of you that are welcome to come into his kingdom and also help others to join. Heaven is taking citizens right now. Apply for that citizenship. Can you imagine? You just have to say yes to God. So this figure that Daniel sees, he was going to somehow, you said he was going to remain in heaven. but he was going to be encompassing these kings of the earth, these empires of the earth, and conquer them all.
Dismantled them. Yep.
So is he like an idea?
Yeah. That's right.
Is he what connects us to the true form of existence, which is eternal?
And that's right. So he commissioned and commanded his troops on earth, you and me, the people of the holy ones of the Most High, with the authority and power of God. God is the judge, but the Son of Man in heaven, the heavenly Son of Man. You see, Ezekiel was the earthly Son of Man. He never went anywhere but on earth. Now, Daniel says a heavenly Son of Man. Later than that, about 150 before Christ, maybe 200, another legend was developed about Enoch. And Enoch was referred to as the Son of Man. Now, the story of Enoch is he's a fellow walking around on earth. He gets caught up into heaven with a whirlwind or something, sort of like, Alice and or the picture of the myth and legend about the ascent into heaven.
Yes, the Bible refers to Enoch as he didn't experience death. He was taken up.
That's right. And so then he gets a tour of heaven. Now the interesting thing about that.
But the interesting thing is, I have read the book of Enoch. It was one of my favorite books. I couldn't put it down. I had to read it, from beginning to end, and I had to finish it, and I had to reread it. I mean, I read it and read it years ago. And I would go ask my teachers and instructors, other pastors, then if the Bible talks about Enoch, and if it quotes in the book of James, in the New Testament, about Enoch's, writings, then why isn't the book of Enoch part of the Bible?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because Enoch gets taken up to heaven. He gets a tour of heaven. And the interesting thing about the tour is two things. One, all the wicked and all the righteous are in heaven. The wicked over here and the righteous over here. And then the second thing is that Enoch finally is set on a throne. He's given a throne, and he controls all the angels. He's superior to the angels, and God says, you are the Son of Man.
And that's very interesting, because I know a scripture. It always gives me goosebumps when I read it. It says that we shall judge angels. So imagine the possibility of how you can rise up in your being to be the judge of the angels, higher than the angels. Mm-hmm. Is that possible?
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. Follow up on this, you see. Enoch's job as the Son of Man is to reveal to people on earth all the heavenly mysteries. And so this is the picture you have. The Son of Man in Ezekiel has this kind of trajectory. He starts out on earth, he ends up on earth, he does his work on earth. The Son of Man in Daniel goes up to heaven from earth, stays in heaven, and does his work from heaven, and ends up in heaven. Now Enoch gets picked up from earth to heaven. He gets a tour of heaven, and he's enthroned in heaven, and then he is given the responsibility to reveal the mysteries of heaven to the people on earth. That's his trajectory. We're never quite sure whether he ever returns to earth, but he gives the books that reveal the mysteries of heaven to his grandson Noah. So that's the story of Enoch. Now, we get to the New Testament, and the first three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they have exactly the same trajectory, practically, same story anyway, as in Enoch. Jesus is a man born in Nazareth or Bethlehem, depending on which scholars you listen to, but he does his work on earth, like Ezekiel. And in the end, he rises to heaven like the Son of Man in Daniel. And from heaven, he waits until he comes back in the final judgment to do God's final work of destroying the wicked and saving the righteous, just as Enoch was commissioned to do, and in that process, revealing the mysteries of heaven on earth.
So
Now,
3 Gospels share that same pathway of the birth and the mission of Christ. But the book of John,
the only difference in the first 3 Gospels from Enoch is that Jesus takes Enoch's place. Jesus becomes the main character in the Synoptic Gospels, whereas Enoch is the same is the chief character in the same story in the book of Enoch. Now you get to John's Gospel, completely different story. First of all, Jesus starts in heaven, or at least the Son of Man starts in heaven. John says the Son of Man is the Logos of God, the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God starts right out in John 1:1 and descends to heaven. In the 14th verse of the first chapter, we read that he dwelt among us and we beheld his glory. Glory is the only begotten of the Father. Should read really, the uniquely begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So here's the Son of Man, the Logos, the Spirit of God. He descends to earth, and he infests a man named Jesus from Nazareth, so that, as Marcus Borg says, Jesus was a man with a life full of God, the Logos.
and he was born that way.
That's right. He was born that way. Now,
But the rest of us have to get that enlightenment.
That's
We're
right.
part of it.
That's
We
exactly
just have to
true.
connect to that energy.
Exactly true. And I think our enlightenment is an enlightenment by the Logos of God in the same sense that Jesus' enlightenment was an enlightenment of the Logos of God.
So he was the light that came to enlighten us.
And he had a life full of God.
So he is the key for us to know on how we need to grow to be like God.
Yes, and he is the illumination for us also, the actual illumination, the one who reveals the mysteries of heaven. And therefore, Jesus refers to Jesus of Nazareth, the man with the life full of God's Logos, as Son of Man. Now, the meaning of that is the man from heaven who reveals the mysteries of heaven. And the mysteries of heaven in John's Gospel are the mysteries of God's radical grace. Because in John's Gospel, the trajectory is like this. Son of Man comes down from heaven. He stays on earth, does his job, tells the story, reveals the mystery of heaven, and then he goes back to heaven.
So is it Son of Man or Son of God?
Yes,
Both are the same?
except that Son of God in Jesus' day meant a righteous man. And Son of Man meant the divine Logos that comes to reveal the mysteries of heaven. And that's why in John's Gospel, there is no second coming. He's gone back to heaven where he belongs, just like the Son of Man in Daniel. He belongs in heaven. That's his role and his status. So he came down, he did his job, he went back to heaven. No second coming in the Gospel of John. No judgment day. No end of history. No cataclysm. No punishing of the wicked. All the way through the Gospel of John, the wicked are eliminated by forgiveness. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
So again, the Gospel of John is the radical grace.
That's right. The Gospel of John is the story of the unconditional and radical grace of God.
And it lives through us. You're
That's right.
saying. It's like we become the warriors of light.
We are the mediators and the channels of that radical grace.
Wow. How would you like to have that energy flow through you? Become part of this light army that is forever lasting. Live your life to fullest now, and know that life is contained a lot more than what we have, what we know, and look at our blessed doctor here. You can grow in ways that you can shock yourself.